This is the first ever screenshot of Destiny 1 I have, and it's from 2009. And this is the first prototype I have of Destiny from 2011. And from this point on, Bungie would experiment heavily with what they wanted Destiny to be. In fact, in an early prototype version of Destiny, you could actually trade items with other people. Today, we will explore the early conceptual phase of Destiny, discovering what Bungie's original vision was, how it evolved from prototype to release, and even going over the first prototype of Destiny ever. Join me as I explore the prototype versions of Destiny and uncover the evolution of a brand new IP from a legendary studio. Let's start our journey with the earliest conceptual prototype of Destiny I have. These are undated, but presumably from early 2011, starting with our first ever prototype of Destiny's user interface. This is the earliest version of Destiny I have. It was made before any of the locations or story of Destiny was figured out. As you can see, it's a map of our solar system, but with different activities scattered around. Bungie would end up scrapping this early prototype, citing that there was too much digging in and out of content, but there is no clear path for players to figure out what to do next. Which is kind of funny because Destiny nowadays has the same exact issue. Players aren't able to figure out a direct path of content to follow. The director, as we know it, would go through many different iterations throughout the early development. Interestingly, you could see the early rumblings of Crucible maps being added straight to the planets that they take place on. Here, you could see Bungie originally had a Slayer element on the moon. I'm kind of glad they got rid of this concept because that would be such a headache to navigate. Imagine having to choose what planet you'd want to play multiplayer on. And while the UI team was hard at work crafting the menus of Destiny, the gameplay designers were hard at work on the encounters and enemies. You may have seen this prototype version of Destiny before. It was being built and tested on the Halo Reach engine at the time before Bungie completely overhauled it. You could see the bubble shield armor ability and the way enemies move are not too dissimilar to the way elites would sidestep in Halo Reach. Bungie didn't just test the UI and abilities in this build. One interesting tidbit is that they would also be testing early raid encounters and even vehicles. In this same prototype, they would be riding around the open world zones in Warthogs from Halo. Unfortunately, I don't have any footage of this, but one of the lead developers who worked on Destiny 1 would confirm this in an interview with Rocket Sloth. I'll have their channel linked in the description. They have really incredible content for Halo and Destiny. Originally, Destiny was supposed to have way more RPG elements. For example, you were originally supposed to be able to see both your player's inventory and an NPC's inventory at the same time. It looks like they wanted item trading to be a big component of Destiny. But this concept was scrapped fairly early because Bungie didn't want the screen to be too dense and hard to read. They also couldn't display many icons at a time without making them really small. In the early design of the player inventory system, Bungie wanted to keep the icons isolated in a panel on the side so they can bring in the user inventory while the game was running, which we would kinda see take place with the vendors. They experimented a little bit with the player's inventory showing you all of the inventory, but quickly realized this would be really cluttering up your inventory screen. Here we can see a more refined version of the user interface. Also, we get a glimpse at an early version of the Guardian's Ghost. It looks very different from the final version we got in the full game's release. You can also see the early beginnings of subclass building on the bottom right section too. And from this point on, we can slowly start to see the UI come together and resemble some aspects of the final version. Specifically, the concept of hiding away your full inventory until you scroll over to it. One thing to note is that an item doesn't seem to have any type of rarity despite having colored backgrounds. I'll have a little bit more on that in a bit. A bit further on in development, Bungie had been satisfied with the progress they made on the abundance of content being showed to players. They moved towards a folder-based approach where you can see the weapon you had equipped and how many of that item class you had in your inventory. They also added a blue progression bar to your item. You can see them on the weapons here. This would indicate how far you've progressed your item so far, but This was scrapped because some of the bigger icons, like the rocket launcher in this picture, would hide the progression. And in early 2013, they had this prototype. Right before E3 2013, Bungie introduced weapon rarities into their Destiny prototype, which is crazy to think about since weapon rarities in Destiny are a big staple now. This version of the UI is pretty close to what we got in the final version of the game. Also, they changed the weapon progress so it now shows up at the bottom of the item instead of behind. I think this looks way better, and I'm glad Bungie made this change. And of course, we now arrive at the infamous E3 2013 build. This is the first ever look at Destiny. We have a glimpse at the original introduction mission where we fight through the walls of old Russia. This is the first and last glimpse of the original version of Destiny we ever got, because after this point, the leadership of Bungie decided to scrap the entire game's story within the last year of development. In the summer of 2013, just over a year before Destiny came out, the story went through a complete reboot. Bungie reworked the entirety of Destiny's entire structure and scrapped characters and overhauled the entire game. The entire Destiny story went through several revisions. The pre-reboot Destiny had way more of a focus on story than the actual game wound up having. So in July of 2013, which was right after this E3 2013 gameplay demo we got, Bungie rebooted the entire game. They cut out the entire Dreadnought storyline, which would ship later in the Taken King DLC, and they changed the order in which Guardians would travel between planets. And then they also cut and restitched a bunch of old content that was already built for the original story. And unfortunately, this is where the original version of Destiny I've shown you so far died. Within the next 10 months, Bungie had to piece together whatever content they could and release the alpha version of Destiny. Destiny's alpha version launched June 12th of 2014 and only lasted a couple days. The alpha served as a critical milestone for Bungie, giving players an early look at the revamped game and allowing the studio to refine its systems based on the feedback they would get. The alpha, which ran for again just a few days, introduced players to the Tower, the game's social hub where players could interact with vendors, decode engrams, and meet other Guardians. This was really cool back then because I hadn't seen anything like this before in a game, and I thought it was awesome just being able to run around with your friends. Additionally, the alpha featured the Crucible, a competitive multiplayer mode where Guardians could test their skill against each other in team-based PvP matches. This mode highlighted Destiny's unique combination of FPS mechanics and class-based abilities, offering a balance of strategy and reflex-driven action. Though it was brief and limited in scope, the alpha captures the community's imagination. It teased the potential of Bungie's reimagined Destiny, building anticipation while revealing the game's innovative blend of narrative, exploration, and multiplayer. And despite the challenges of its development, the alpha proved that Destiny still had the foundations to become a landmark title in gaming. The alpha's brief runtime left us all craving for more. Each session felt like a small glimpse into a universe bursting with potential. Fortunately for us though, Bungie gave us another opportunity with the Destiny beta, which ran from July 17th to July 27th, 2014. This beta included an open beta towards the end. For most of the beta, the experience was pretty similar to the alpha, a limited slice of the game that included Old Russia, the Tower, and Crucible. However, Bungie did have a surprise in store for the final days when they unlocked the Moon and gave players a taste of what laid beyond Earth. The addition of the Moon was a defining moment for many Guardians. I still remember the first time I loaded into the Moon patrol space. The landscape was quiet and barren, yet hauntingly beautiful. Jagged craters, abandoned hive structures, and the faint glow of Earth hanging in its dark sky created an atmosphere unlike anything else in the game. Exploring this desolate terrain, encountering hive enemies in dark caverns, and uncovering new mysteries felt like stepping into a whole new world. It wasn't just a gameplay moment. It was an unforgettable experience that hinted at the scale and depth that Destiny could achieve. The beta also expanded on what players had seen in the alpha, offering a deeper dive into Destiny's core gameplay. Players can participate in additional story missions, explore old Russia more thoroughly, and earn a wider range of weapons, gear, and abilities. The social features of the tower became even more robust as more players populated the space, and the Crucible saw increased activity with competitive matches showcasing the game's refined balance. Bungie even hosted a special event called Iron Banner, which gave a preview of higher stake PvP action where power level and gear stats mattered. But perhaps more importantly, the open beta was Bungie's chance to test their infrastructure and gather feedback from the community. With millions of players logging in, the beta was a critical stress test for Destiny's servers, helping Bungie prepare for the game's official launch. It also gave players a chance to voice their opinions, leading to improvements and refinements in the final game. The beta wasn't just an extension of the alpha, it was a statement. Bungie showed that Destiny was more than a shooter. It was a massive, interconnected world with stories to tell, places to explore, and challenges to overcome. By the time the beta ended, it was clear that Destiny was on the verge of becoming something truly special. And with that, we arrived to September of 2014, the launch of Destiny. And boy, was it something special. I had never played a game like this before in my whole life, and rather than explain why it was so great, let me take you on a quick stroll through the now desolate and empty world of Destiny 1. While the game received not so great reviews about the amount of content in the game, one thing that was universally loved was the world that Bungie had created. I myself fell for Destiny on day one, and I have the playtime to prove it, unfortunately. Destiny will forever hold a special place in my heart, and also the hearts of millions around the world. If you guys enjoyed this video, I would really appreciate it if you left a comment down below. Your reception to my content has been nothing short of incredible, and I enjoy reading through every single comment you guys leave. Yes, even the meme comments. If you could do me a favor and subscribe, that would mean the world to me. One of my biggest goals with this channel is to show your favorite games through a lens that you may not have seen before. And if there's any games you'd like me to cover in the future, please leave a comment down below. Thank you.